Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We're just going to have a bit of a discussion about intergenerational working within the workplace. And today I am just going to introduce myself first. So I am Gemma Clark. I'm an associate in the employment law team at Wright Hassel in Leamington Spa. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Tina Chander and Natasha Broomfield-Reid, who I'll pass across to introduce you formally to them. But Tina is the head of our employment law team at Wright Hassel, and Natasha is a director at Diverse Matters. So I'll pass across to Tina so she can tell you a little bit about herself.
So welcome everyone to our podcast today. So you might have checked in on some of our previous podcasts. We're always looking for fabulous guests to join us. And today we have Natasha, who is super. And I met Natasha at a networking event, which goes to show networking does work. And we built a great connection, didn't we?
Definitely.
And, you know, Natasha, you're very focused on EDI and, you know, particularly diversity. Obviously, I'm an employment lawyer and that heavily features in my role. And I think it's just great when two professionals from different disciplines but similar backgrounds in what we do on a day-to-day can come together. We're not in competition. We're working together to raise awareness and to give some really good information to our viewers.
Definitely. And like I say, it was great we met. I think we clicked straight away, didn't we, like that?
Yeah.
I need to know that woman. And hence how many things we've done together since. So it's all good.
Yes. Well, actually, I have to confess, I watched your presentation because we were doing one for an organisation. And actually, Natasha spoke about everything I had planned to speak about. So I was like, I was sitting in the seat thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to talk about?
You did it.
But being a lawyer, you have to think on your feet, don't you? So anyway, no one knew any different, did they?
Exactly. No, it was all good.
Well, that's all right. Today we're working all together for our podcast. So as I mentioned, we want to look at intergenerational working. Now, it's not a new issue in the workplace, but it is coming to light more and more recently because we're actually looking at, with the life expectancy increasing, more generations being in the workplace. And we're actually at the point of 5 generations now in the workplace. Now, because, again, the abolishment of the default retirement age in 2011, that's also helped increase the older generation staying potentially in the workplace for longer as well. So, first off, we thought we'd give a bit of a run through of the 5 generations. So, Tasha, do you want to take us through those?
This is where the only time I will have to look at my piece of paper because I'm going to try and remember all the dates and I might get it wrong. So, we're going to start with the silent generation. Silent generation is 1928 to 1945. Then we have baby boomers. You can guess what we are later. Baby boomers, which is 1946 to 1964. Then Gen X, 1965 to 1980. Are you starting to think which one you're at? Then we've got millennials, 1981 to 1996. Also known as Gen Y sometimes. And then Gen Z, if however you say it, or Gen Z, whatever, is 1997 to 2012. And also the next generation where people are talking about coming through is called Generation Alpha, apparently. So that is something we're going to be talking about, you know, in times to come when they join the workplace.
Oh, I'll no longer be the youngest generation.
There you go.
I am. I've just squeezed myself in 1997 to Gen Z, and I think Tina's just squeezed herself into...
I'm a millennial. I couldn't even say it properly. I'm a millennial because I'm a 1981 baby.
Yeah, and I'm the older one in the room.
Oh, no, you're not.
I'm the Gen X. But also when we did that event, we did an event and we talked about this. There was 5, remember there was actually 5 generations in the room at that time. It was brilliant. It just shows you it is living and breathing. It's happening.
And I think, you know, we're having a laugh and a joke about all the different names that have come up for the generations. But, you know, in reality, these generations form part of a successful workplace. And I think that you can easily get swooped into thinking, well, I'll just have someone who wants a long career path, so that must be someone who's younger, for example, or someone straight out of uni. But actually, what actually makes a successful workforce is having a collaborative workforce in my mind, and that is, you know, one that's inclusive, that's diverse, that believes in equity. But actually, to achieve those things, intergenerational working is a strong feature, but it's not really spoken about.
Honestly, it's not spoken about enough. As we all know, every year we hear you will work in another year until we get a pension, for those people who get a government pension and whatever. And, when I talk about diversity and inclusion, it needs to be talked about more. It's that silent, discussion around equality and equity, because one of the things guaranteed, we're going to be, most of us have to work. So why aren't organisations looking at, particularly like you said, the default retirement age? People have been working much longer. So why aren't they thinking about, okay, how can we get the best out of people at any age?
Yeah.
There's perceptions which we're going to talk about later, but at any age, what can you do to make sure that you work cohesively and don't lose the talent as well? You don't want to lose good people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when it comes to talent, we can learn so much from each other, and age and length of service or years in experience, they all come into this intergenerational space that we're talking about. But we're very scared as a population to talk about age because we don't want to be accused of being discriminatory on the grounds of age, or we don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But we're not asking people to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
We're saying embrace age and have people from different generations in your workforce and get the best out of everyone.
Yeah. And it's all about competence and capability. It's not about age. There's people who are in their 70s who are working, who are brilliant. There's younger people that are brilliant. There's also people who might have capability issues. It's around good management, and good line management is key in all of this. And I always talk about this. Even you could do a podcast just on having good line managers.
Correct.
Because people might be great at their job, but managing people is really hard. To do it properly anyway, you've got to put the time in. But if it's all about how can you get the best out of that person? Also, are there any gaps or development needs? And get on it and support those people, and you'll have them as long as possible.
Agreed. I think, when you approach your workforce, or when you apply for a role, what I see happening is everyone goes through the same induction process. Everyone has a team lunch. I say everyone because that's certainly something that I do when I have a new joiner, but and continue to do, actually, don't I?
You do?
Because I just think it's fun.
Yeah.
However, what we do now, or what businesses tend to do, is the same. They just take the same approach for every step of an employee's journey.
Yeah.
And I see the merit in that because then no one's treated differently.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. We have a lot, as an employment lawyer, I deal with clients who say I've been treated less favourably, or allegations of less favourable treatment. I think the problem we have now is there's a sense of fear of saying or doing the wrong thing. So let's treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
Which I wholeheartedly agree with. But that doesn't mean you can't adapt. And adapting is different from treating someone totally differently, if that makes sense.
And it's sort of on the lines of adaptations, adjustments. It's about what barriers might that person have to do their job properly.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. No matter, what, who you are and what age you are and what needs you are. If you're a good manager, you're saying, look, how can we get the best out of you? And what do we need to do that? Do you need a bit of kit? Do you need flexibility in this area? What do you need? And that's what it's about, because nobody wants, to be looking at Glassdoor and you've got, they were an awful employer, or nobody wants their attrition and their retention rates to be bad or poor, So it's really about meeting their needs and being that, person-centred.
Yeah.
What do you need to get the best out of you? Because then you're paying money to these people, you're paying wages, you're paying salaries. You want success, you want good performance. Yeah.
You invest.
Exactly. You invest to get the best performance, don't you?
I only heard very recently, I was talking to a client about flexible working, which is another podcast of its own. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah.
But I just, as part of my question, I was like, so do you regularly get flexible working requests? And the client said, well, yeah, we tend to get them mainly from women returning off mat leave, or older people that have done a long time and they want to reduce a day. So that's the problem, you see. That's what we have. And I was like, oh, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Why should it be a problem? A flexible working request, and I won't harp on too much about that because that's not what we're here today. But flexible working request, day one right, that is something
Yeah.
a business should learn to adapt to as well. It's not always possible to meet everyone's flexible working request. But the point of this particular conversation is that the thought of an older generation saying, I want to make a flexible working request because I want to reduce a day seemed to be an issue.
Seemed negative.
But of course, you could be, I could just decide, actually, I want to drop down from 5 days to 4 days. Don't consider myself older. I don't have children. I don't have a written down reason, but maybe I just want a better work-life balance. So,
and I think there's a lot more focus on work-life balance. And for that, some people who were younger wanted that. I had somebody work for me who was in the younger, very in their 20s, and they want, part-time or reduced hours would work really well for them.
Yeah.
So it's about what your needs are. Some people, like I said, it's about how can you get the best out of it. We know that sometimes flex work can't work, whether it's business needs, whether it's the job. But if it can, why not? Why wouldn't you?
Yes.
If you're getting a brilliant staff member, why wouldn't you do it? And like you said, this perception of, sometimes when people are older and they're coming, the career is not coming to an end because they could be working for 10 years, but they want to slow down. Sometimes the perception is what we shouldn't allow them to do that, or they're too qualified as well.
Yeah.
They're too qualified. They can't. Why? I'd love somebody too qualified. Bring them. Bring them along. Wouldn't you want that talent in your team?
Exactly. I mean, and asking to reduce your hours is not doesn't demonstrate a lack of commitment. At all. But when it comes to businesses and their recruitment, I mean, you deal a lot with that, don't you, Natasha? So I tend to deal with when recruitment goes wrong in my role. And when recruitment goes wrong, it's someone said or done something they shouldn't have. But also, when we look at workforces now, ultimately, is there a mixed generation of staff or not? But are employers asking that question, and are they recruiting for that? What are your thoughts on that?
I think generally people do not look at their recruitment processes fully. So we do sort of inclusive recruitment audits or recruitment advice and whatever in terms of doing it inclusively. And a lot of people, probably even all of us, if we looked at how we recruit from advert attraction to interview to induction, but if we all looked at every aspect of that, we could improve it. So if you had a process which was inclusive, not looking at bias, not looking at, even things like, as we know, the terminology you use in a, hardworking, enthusiastic, fast-paced environment, all these things, what's that really saying? So it's about, is there inclusive language? Are you saying you're open? I mean, I love, like in retail now, I've seen in so many, different retailers, I think B&Q, SGC, they've got so many people of all ages. I'm looking around, I'm going, I love it.
Yes.
So look at what they're doing, and they're obviously working really well. So it's about, are you, making sure if anybody out there is an employer, are you making sure there are no barriers to any age for recruitment? I also remember doing some training with an organisation, I won't name them, and that's what I'm about to say. And I think they were a PR and a marketing team, and they were saying, I said, we were talking about recruitment. And they said, we did recruit someone, they were really good, they were really skilled, but they weren't a cultural fit. I said, oh yeah. Which mean with that? Oh, they're in their 40s, they were too old. I was like, I beg your pardon.
Wow.
So that thing around people will use excuses. I mean, to me, I think you have to be careful when you say culture fit. What does that really mean?
Yeah.
To me, culture fit should mean values, inclusion, equity. They reflect the values of the organisation, not because you're too old and your face isn't fit. I'd be like, bring it on. They must have come with a wealth of experience. And they said, you do know that's age discrimination.
Yeah.
Because
but they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. That's the thing.
Yeah. And that person in their 40s, some people think age, when we talk about age or, when we talk intergenerational today, it's older people and younger people, but it could be 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And as we've talked before we started today, there's so much discrimination for people who are over 50, and I'm in that category. So when it comes to that, there's a lot of people feel they're not going to get a fair go at having applying for a job. 50 is nothing these days.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
I agree.
So, people out there, look at the skill, look at the talent, don't look at the age, which is why actually you shouldn't age should be removed anyway, really and truly.
What's it called? The
anonymized recruitment. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They call something CV. No. Blind.
Yeah.
Blind
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
That's it.
Yeah. Because that allows you then, so you're not making a judgment. I mean, when you're trying, people will try and sneak and find to get on LinkedIn. Please don't do that, to be fair. But yeah, it's about making sure you're not making those judgments, because you could be missing out on real talent that you can have in the organisation. Also, if you've got people at different ages, they can learn off each other.
Yeah.
I would love to have somebody, who I could learn from, we could bring somebody in and go, teach me that. And it's about sharing those skills. Now, it's not easy. We talked that day, didn't we, around the fact that, because people aren't looking at intergenerational working and they're not even on their agenda. Get it on your agenda, people. Get it on the agenda. Get it in your plans, in your talent plans. It then does become not a problem, can become a problem for some organisations, because they're not looking at it properly.
Yeah.
And they only deal with it when it becomes a problem and they come to you.
Yes.
So what they should be looking at, how can we get the best collaboration out of all ages, which they're not doing.
I agree. And actually, Gem, because Gem's also a lawyer in my team, and, I love dissecting stuff. So I love looking at a problem like, how can I fix it? But we get presented with problems which are honestly unfixable. You're going to have to settle this one.
Yeah.
And maintain your reputation, because if this gets out, this goes to tribunal, you will have a poor reputation for it. It'll get out. Because, word of mouth recruitment is so popular. People talk. We all talk. I talk. And who's a good employer? What's a good employer? This person was in court, and that's something that we deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's, as you say, the reputational side. It's an open proceedings at tribunal, and you don't want to be getting to that stage. And it's very much, as Tina says, they come to us and we try to retroactively assist, but there's a limitation to what you can do at that point. If discriminatory conduct has occurred, then you are looking at a potential tribunal claim with potentially unlimited compensation. So it's being proactive, and as Natasha said, put it on the agenda, because you have so many benefits. Yes, there are challenges, but if you can get past those and get it on the agenda and work together, then you're going to get that experience. Society's changed a lot over the years, different legal positions, economical, social, technology, and it's all of those things, and you're going to get the breadth of experience and knowledge, and you want that to be passed along. You're going to have different customers, different clients, and how they best respond to things. As you mentioned about line management, you can have different approaches to people. It's talking about equality, but it's equity, and that's what we talked about, the adaptation. So it's still fair, but it's not necessarily treating everyone the same. You've got to get the best out of them, and different approaches help with that.
I think, when it comes to tribunal claims, so like I don't have a magic wand, and I definitely don't have a crystal ball, because I would have won the lottery by now. But what I try and do is actually use that process to also educate the client, so you're not in that situation again. But what I always find interesting is, there will be cases where it is blatant age discrimination or discrimination of another protected characteristic. But what we also get is, that's not what I meant. That's not how I saw that. No, I didn't do that because I was being discriminatory. And there's a big grey area where people are taking actions not knowing that actually those actions can make you culpable and make you liable. But there was no genuine intent, if I can put it like that.
And I think I've been doing a lot of this lately. I was talking about delivering this week, and one of the things that I think a lot of employers don't do is teach their teams about inclusive language, managing difficult conversations, having it positively, having good policy and practice. What messages are they giving out about age inclusion, the benefits of it, for example? But also, have you got a strong code of conduct, dignity at work policy? But also, it's not just having the policy. Do they know what it is? Too many people, and I suppose I've been guilty in my past myself, maybe historically, you give out a policy, expect everybody to know about it. What we should be doing when you're talking about age inclusion, the policy and procedures that address that, making sure everybody knows in the organisation where it is, what it means for them. Even if you do a little video or hear the highlights from what it means, you know, because half of those situations where they come to you with, you know, issues, if they would have done that education, learning, awareness of, you know, zero tolerance to any discrimination or inappropriate behaviours, it wouldn't happen. Because when they said, you know, I didn't mean it, and I understand about intent, because, you know, we're not all bad people.
Yes.
Sometimes people put their foot in it, genuinely not realising, but it's about the ongoing education awareness that employers should do. And half the problems you have is because people don't know about that. They don't know. I didn't realise that was, you know, people in different sectors. You know, you have some sectors where inclusion probably isn't high on the agenda, but you need to start putting it on the agenda.
Yes.
People have this negative word, but actually inclusion is about behaviours. Inclusion is about what, you know, language, it's about keeping people. All that falls within employment and employment law as well. So it's important.
You talked earlier about, you know, culture and it being a word that's, you know, we hear a lot of, and I have to agree with that. You know, there isn't a business out there that doesn't want a great culture.
Exactly.
And I love that.
Yeah.
But do they know what underpins a great culture?
Yeah.
And in my mind, you know, inclusivity, diversity, equity, equality, they actually underpin. You can have your values, but if those values don't underpin equality and diversity inclusion, then what are those values? What is it that you want your employees to live and breathe and believe in? And, you know, when it comes to inclusivity, I think this is where intergenerational working plays a part, because intergenerational working promotes inclusivity.
Definitely.
There are more pros to an inclusive workforce than none. But it's, you know, and I love this part of doing a podcast when we talk about what we hear or the pros and cons and what people have said. But, you know, what one perception I definitely want to put out there is, when we talk about intergenerational workforce, we're not saying please just only recruit people over 50 or you should. That includes, you know, not recruiting people that are younger because there is a perception they will move on. They're always going to be a flight risk. They might get married and move away, or they might be of childbearing age. I've heard that one before.
Oh, yeah.
So good. So let's share some perceptions that we hear.
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to the whole stereotypes, perceptions, you hear about young people, they're snowflakes, they don't want to stay.
Yeah.
They don't, you know, they're all tech savvy.
Entitled.
Glued to the phone.
Glued to the phone. Now, you know.
What's an iPhone baby? That's a new thing.
Have you heard that? No, I haven't heard that.
I don't know where I heard it, but I heard somewhere iPhone baby.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't ask what. I just sort of pieced it together. I was like, that must mean children that, because they're brought up with mobile phones.
Yeah.
Gen Z or Gen Z, often called the iGen.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the other way around, when it comes to people like, say, over 50 and older, the perception is they don't want to learn to do things. They don't want to do. Listen, my mum's in her 80s. She worked out some stuff on an Uber app the other day that I never knew even existed. Don't be making assumptions, you know? I was like,
absolutely.
So, you know, there are, you know, and even if there are, you know, and, you know, when it comes to stereotypes, you know, we know there are commonalities and, you know, but it is a generalisation, and it's making an assumption that everybody from that, whether it's a band of age, 40, 50, 60 or older, you know, we're talking people at pension age, whichever, they're going to be a certain way. And it's trying to negate that. And again, you know, we'll talk about this a lot in training consultancy, making sure you're doing what you can to mitigate any biases as well in your practice. Are you making sure you're educating constantly when people are about to recruit, you know, when people are managing, because people come with these ideas, don't they? They, you know, they might have somebody recruited who might be in their 60s, could be absolutely marvellous.
Yeah.
And then making somebody come young, you know, we've got apprenticeships now. Now it's for any age, but it's predominantly a lot of young people. I think they're brilliant. But, you know, some of those young people are so talented, and they probably have a preconception about what they are going to be like. And I think we shouldn't do that. See who's in front of you. Don't be judged by a stereotype.
But I also think that, you know, and I've seen this struggle actually, that if you are of a younger generation and you've stepped into a senior role, that, you know, you're not taken seriously, or you must be from a particular privileged background, or don't worry about what she or he says. Go to this person who's been here longer, and therefore they know what they're talking about.
I had that. I've been in management probably since my 20s. And you get, who are you? What do you know? And you get people properly interrogating you. It's fine.
Yeah.
But as you can see, I can handle it. But, you do get people judging you, like, how did you get this job? I was an area manager in my 20s. Do you know what I mean? And then you think, and you have to sort of prove yourself. You shouldn't have to.
And it's subtle sometimes.
Yeah.
Someone said, oh, well, I've got a daughter who's older than you. When were you after school?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's the underlying.
Yeah.
How experienced are you?
It's about skill. At the end of the day, if you've done a good, which is another thing that people need to do, a good interview and assessment process is who's best for the job. Yeah. Okay, no matter what age. You might have some younger people who are absolutely brilliant. And it's also about sometimes, which again, people shouldn't be doing if you're doing it out there, saying this, we need to have been doing this job for 5 years. Because sometimes some could have done it for 2 or 3 years and they've just picked up on it and they're brilliant.
Correct. Yeah. And there is, there's lots of industries that operate on that basis. Like you've got to be in a role for a certain period of time to be able to move to a different role, a more senior one. But then actually, what that is saying is you've got to be a bit older then, isn't it? Because if you are fresh out of uni, or you've only been working full-time or part-time, whatever, but you've been working for 12 months, well, you don't meet that criteria. So that criteria is discriminatory.
Yeah. And it's the language as well. Of times we've had situations because people might have certain qualifications and you can have that. But you need to be adaptable because qualification names changes. People might not have had the qualification at different generations. So you can't just use that as a factor and say absolutely not on that basis. Because again, you risk discrimination claims.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there might be some jobs where you have to have a certain qualification. We know that.
Yes.
But, what is what you need. Do you have to be doing it that many years? You might not. You might 6 months, you might think that's not enough, but you shouldn't really, you've got to be realistic, and people do not do the assessment on what the actual need is. I think people need to start with what they need rather than, a lot of people start at the wrong end.
Yeah.
They'll go, we need this job. Have they actually assessed that job description? Have they reviewed it? Has the job changed since the last person's been in it? Or what, you know what I mean? And they don't do that assessment. They should look at, what do I really need? And they often don't do that.
Well, talking about job descriptions, most contracts refer to job descriptions that's never existed.
Wow.
It's true, isn't it, Jen?
Oh, wow.
We always ask for it and they go, oh, we don't have one.
We don't have one. So, and then we find out that actually their job title probably doesn't match what you think that they should be doing. Because, people will do what they can to comply with the law.
Yeah, the minimum maybe.
The minimum. But sometimes some of the stuff that I see is just nonsensical. I'm like, why have you done? Well, you might as well have not had a contract.
That is shocking. That is.
There's always a reference to a job, and it's always attached. Well, is there a page missing?
And sometimes they'll even say it's not contractual because they know that they should probably say that to help them amend it.
Oh my
and they
gosh.
just go, I don't know where it is, or there are 6. Here you go, take the pick.
No, come on, employees, do better wherever they are. Come on.
Well, you know what? I always like to give a shout out to the really good employees. There's so many out there, and
true.
I know we do focus on the ones that aren't doing it right because that's how we bring awareness. But so many are fantastic as well.
And I would say also for those who are doing good stuff, learn from each other because there is good practice out there. There's materials, whether it's CIPD, whether it's Aging Better. There's lots of organisations that are out there that are looking, have got really good stuff. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. What can you do to learn? And even things around, this is maybe for more bigger employers, but a lot of big employers have like networks, whether it's around race, LGBT plus, disability, but also I don't hardly any have any around age. And considering that is going to be, age is something you can't get away from in work. So actually, why don't people have age networks that actually look at...
They're scared.
Scared. To look at how we can make sure at every age you are included within the organisation, or is there anything specific we need to look at? I'm doing some work with an organisation and they had an early careers network, which was quite interesting. And I thought, I've never really seen that. So what about doing it with other, from broader? And they say, we're open, and it's early careers to working in sort of council. So there could be any age, to be fair. But again, it's like age is something that, is something we can't move away from. It could really help develop the organisation in terms of keeping people, what keeps them there at all ages. People don't do as much even job share like they did before. That would be, what are they missing?
Yeah. And, I think we, hopefully we're doing a lot today to make sure that this is on the radar.
Yeah.
But people turn us off shortly. And then what happens? What happens? So, for me, I think one of the things that I know that you share this thought, because I've heard you talk about it when I've been to some of your events, that, we talk about doing questionnaires and keeping on top of them, really, and anonymising those questionnaires and giving the entire workforce the opportunity to say something. Because they will not say it with their name printed. They're not going to say it with their name printed. So, I very much encourage employers to use the workforce to get the information that they need. So to stop guessing what a workforce is. Ask them how do they feel about a certain situation? What do they like? What do they don't like?
Exactly.
What do they think about the culture in this organisation? From that, you can gain so much. But any employer that wants to do that and then feel very annoyed about the answers and do nothing, don't bother doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no point. And if any employer wants to do it just once a year, I'd probably just not bother either. Because that's something that needs to happen at least every 3 to 6 months. But we talk about this being on the agenda. Employees are the backbone of a successful company. You can have all the strategies you want. You can have great investment. You can have great IT systems. If you don't have a happy workforce, it's not going to be the best workforce you could have. So top tips I'm coming on to. What would you recommend?
I'll start with one you just mentioned, just to say that feedback and surveys are really good. But what I would say on top of that is make sure you do demographic, even though it's anonymised, do it versus the demographic data. So you can actually look at the ages and who's saying what. Okay. So as well as doing the survey, make sure you can see what ages they are. Make sure you give as enough information about the confidentiality of that as well. And the fact that it's going to be anonymised when reporting. Because sometimes people are a bit hesitant about feeding back. I've also, I don't know if I mentioned this last time we met, where I've heard that a lot of people are doing stay surveys as well. So as well as doing so as well as doing what the culture of the organisation is, do stay surveys. What's actually keeping you here?
I love this.
I know. I was like that. So that's another option that people can do stay surveys. So making sure that they are, how to keep them. Like I said, have networks. If you've got networks, or even for smaller organisations, you might not have a network, but you might have an EDI committee or an inclusion committee or a people committee. Make sure that you've got, make sure you represent age. If anybody doing talent succession planning or people, organisation development, have you considered age within that to make sure you're looking at competent training for your staff?
I'm
you're making sure that the training to manage people from all ages, looking at competency and making it competence, capability. And also, like I said earlier, making sure your policies are up to scratch, but also how do people know those policies, what they mean, where they are, what's their responsibility in embedding that policy, and just keeping it on. And just like you said, get the feedback, all those things. And also, like we said before, look at your recruitment processes. Is there anything that's
where
missing?
It starts.
Exactly.
And then it's the imagery and the language that you use to say throughout, making sure that it's regular language that everyone can understand. Everyone, they don't feel that they then need to ask questions and it's their fault that they don't understand something for that reason.
And just on that note, representation. So what is your representation showing? Even on your website, in your packs and your information you give out, are you showing your inclusive age employer, for example?
And you shouldn't have to say it. You should be able to just demonstrate it, shouldn't you?
No, definitely.
So, what I'd like to add to that, Natasha, is calling it out. Because what we're doing is being all these things, I agree 100% with you. And, when I say, I think employers need to call it out as well. And I mean that in a couple of ways. So first of all, it's okay to talk about age. So we do so in our team, there is age gaps in our team. and we talk about it in a positive way, not let's start talking about age today, but our experiences and what we've done on the weekend or where we've been and people's personal lives or, you know, back then or what's happening. Like age can feature as part of discussion and that's okay. But age should not make someone feel different in a negative way. It shouldn't result in them not being treated the same. It shouldn't result in them feeling discriminated against. And, you know, you can make a joke about age. I'm sure it's quite a popular joke to be made. Or you can have a banterous conversation. But it can offend. And we need to, if someone's offended, there's an informal approach to deal with things. But there's always the very robust formal approach as well, depending on the circumstances and how a complaint's received. But if someone feels upset or complains, don't let's hide that. Let's deal with that.
But I also think that there needs to be more awareness about when you do cross the line.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't do enough on that aspect around discussions. I mean, some people don't even like the term bantering work, you know, whether it's banter, whether it's discussions. People need to know where they fit in that. They need to know what's, you know, because again, most people are nice people and they're not going to be intentionally, but age is one of those topics that people would never say the similar thing about race or disability necessarily or LGBT, but age is that one where people do think they can. You know what I mean? It's one of the ones where it's seen as a lighter one. Not that it should. So it's about making sure that people know when don't cross that line. So, you know, they shouldn't get to a point where they're making a complaint. They should know. Because I always say, listen, most people have got a moral compass. If you think that somebody, what you're about to say, that it might offend, just don't say it.
It probably will.
You know?
And, you know, I'm just trying to think back because you can say things like, so let's say that I said something to Gemma, there's, about 20 years between us about that. Like, what if I said to you, you wouldn't know that, Gem, that's an 80s thing. You might laugh at that. But then if I said it in a different context, you might be offended by that.
No, it is definitely how you say things and approach, isn't it? Because that's just making a comment. If you went, oh, you know, sort of dismissing you or, you know, being inappropriate, that's a different thing. And I think people need to understand that, you know, we're in a workplace and it's, you know, you might be at your own house, that, you know, making jokes, still not right. But in the workplace, there are infrastructure, there are processes, there are restrictions, there are guidelines, all within reason and to create an inclusive and happy and cohesive culture, you know. So it's not about being too clinical and it's not about you can't say anything. I remember doing some training.
We're not
once.
the banter police.
No.
Not the banter police.
I'm not, I mean, I remember doing some training on Digging to Work. Are you going to come and this guy said to me, are you going to tell us we can't have a laugh at banter? I was like, absolutely not.
I
you know,
that.
You want to have fun. We're all at work. You know, we're not winning the lottery. I keep saying we're all here, so we want to enjoy ourselves.
So when we deliver the training, because we do a banter versus discrimination training, super popular. And that always happens. Oh, so we can't really do anything. And I'm like, no, I always say I'm not the banter police. And then, but you know, the biggest shock is that, you know, in my team, us lawyers have banter, and it's like, you do. We do talk. We have a laugh.
Of course. You've got to have a laugh, haven't you? But it's about
the line.
The line, isn't it?
It's not a clear line.
Yeah, sometimes
it's not. It's not necessarily intent. It's how the person receives it feels as well. So it's difficult, and that's when you get into the stereotype. You might say, you know, someone's tech savvy, and you might think, oh, that's a positive thing I've said to you, but you might have offended other people who said aren't tech savvy because of their age. And even the people in that generation you're saying are, if they aren't themselves, because it is just a stereotype, they can feel a bit like, oh, I don't know, I can't get any support now because I should be doing this. I'm underperforming because of that. And it's just, you've got to be so careful. As you say, it's the phrasing and how you come across.
And
but also, you know, you've just said that. It just made me think of a slide in my training. I've got to tell you, right? So actually, this younger person in the slide is giving an older person a compliment, like, "Oh, you did really well at that because it had a new equipment." And the older person's really offended, and I can see why, because the younger person thought, I couldn't believe you managed that. Whereas that same sentence would not have been said to someone of the same age range. So I just had to say, because it just reminded me.
But that's just about education, isn't it? It's really about education, and both of us, you know, can't stress that enough. That's what we do, isn't it? And it's about making sure that people are aware
And hopefully we've done that today.
Please get on your agenda, okay?
Yeah, so hopefully we've left you with some top tips really for businesses. But thank you for joining us today while we've had a bit of a discussion about the benefits, the different stereotypes to be careful of, and what steps you can take to make sure it is on your agenda.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Was that